One. So several months ago, we get a call from a frantic client that they had been visited by an OSHA inspector without warning. It wasn't that the company was violating any OSHA rules, but they were concerned that their team didn't know what to do, what doors to open, or how to react. And this isn't just about politeness, right? A single OSHA fine can cost up to $15,000 or more. And that's a big concern for a small manufacturer, which is the type of company that Polaris MEP serves. Luckily for the client and Polaris MEP, we'd already established a relationship with Darcy Cook of Safety Trainers. Darcy is our featured presenter today. Darcy leads Cook Professional Resources, and Safety Trainer supplies expertise and support to more than 20 different industries throughout New England, including Rhode Island manufacturers. More than 60% of Safety Trainers clients have been with them for over 14 years. Polaris MEP's clients rely on Safety Trainers for a variety of solutions, including OSHA 10-hour and 30-hour training, OSHA record keeping, OSHA fines and violations abatement, and emergency management training. For those in the audience who haven't worked with us yet, Polaris MEP's sole mission is to help small manufacturers in the state of Rhode Island improve, grow, and increase profitability. That means customize and affordable solutions for your top lines, bottom lines, and pipelines. It also means a one-stop shop for connections to resources in Rhode Island and across the United States. Polaris MEP, the MEP stands for Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which basically means we're an extension of your manufacturing facility. I'm Rob Chipman, and my new role at Polaris is focused on extending the solutions and services we can offer smaller manufacturers through partnerships with expert resources like Darcy. We'll have time at the end for questions. Please toss your comments or questions into the chat box, and Darcy will do her best to answer them at the end. The most common question is typically, will you share the deck? Yes, we will. We will share this deck with everyone who fills out our event feedback survey, which you'll also get by email after the webinar. And I'll turn it over to Darcy now.
Hey, hello everyone. Good morning. My name's Darcy. If you haven't heard my name said, Darcy 6 more times. But listen, today's all about you answering your questions and helping you to navigate through what I call the alphabet soup of regulations and acronyms along the way. So my intent, the objective in the next 40 minutes is to give you enough information that you guys can take action. Now, I always say that safety is a really big elephant. So let me show you how big this elephant is. This book, one of the 4 books of regulations, just OSHA, not even talking about the other regulators, DEP, DOT, I mean, all those acronyms. This is OSHA's for general industry. That's you, the manufacturer. It's 900 pages of regulations. So a good safety person, the first thing they do is they rip out all the pages in that don't apply to you and then help you put a program together that makes sense around those focused initiatives. So what I want to do today is make sure that you guys have a plan in place and you know what to do when OSHA comes knocking at your door and wants to take a look inside your safety plan. So to Rob's point, sadly, a couple quick things that you want to know is OSHA has really stepped up their game. And what I mean by that is we've been doing this for 25 plus years. And I typically only mitigate our company between 8 and 10 OSHA citations a year. In the last 8 months, I've already done 27 myself, not including the rest of my team. Why is it all of a sudden this ramp up in citations and violations? OSHA, just so you guys realize, they have centers. Like in Massachusetts, they have 3, or Rhode Island has 1, New Hampshire has 1, so Maine has 1. So each of the states have these OSHA centers. And in those OSHA centers, there are 2 parts. Part 1 is compliance. Part 2 is consulting and support. that they give to all companies and businesses. And OSHA just went through a massive hire. Now, we've heard this before, and I don't get really excited, and I'm not the one that goes screams fire, fire, and I'm an alarm. I'm definitely not an alarmist. But what I've observed has brought concern to the fact that I can't predict the future as well as I used to anymore. So it used to be really easy me to figure out what was going on with OSHA, what was predictable, how we could defend against it, what we need to say or do if they did come knocking through your doors. But over the last 8 months, what we've observed is that they went through a massive hiring. And each of our locations regionally have additional OSHA enforcement agents. And what they have been saying that they were going to do, they've actually started to do. And you're going to learn what's called a targeted inspection. That literally means your NAICS, your code, your NAICS code, typically goes with your taxes, HR people, your finance people will know what your NAIC codes are. And those national index codes put you into a hat. And OSHA puts you into a hat depending on the hazards, but depending on that code tells them what kind of work you do, so they can make some assumptions on the kind of hazards that you have. So then they take your name, they throw your name into a whole bunch of buckets, a whole bunch of hats now. And on a regular basis, they're pulling names out of these hats. Now, again, over 20 years plus in business doing this, they never had the resources to do it. And that's what they've been doing. And so that's why I've done 27 of them in the last 8 months alone, is the kinds of citations that are coming out. So the biggest concern I have is I get the phone call from a company that's not currently a client of ours. And when I start asking them questions about their OSHA investigation and their citations and what they did or what they haven't done or what photos we're taking or how long it's been, timelines, they fail to be able to provide me some really important information. And that information makes my job even harder to help you. And so what we're doing with this webinar is we're going to make sure that you guys get things started correctly. Number one, we want you to have prevention and a plan in place if they do come through the door. But if they do show up, what do we actually do? What are the action items? Because I'm sure, like many of you, you don't necessarily have just one person manning your lobby or having a receptionist or a point of contact. I find a lot of my manufacturers don't have active lobbies anymore. They don't have a key person in that lobby. And so you never know who's going to answer the door. You never know what door they're going to come to. Some of our manufacturers like to leave the bay doors open. Shouldn't be leaving your bay door open, but if you do, OSHA can walk through that door. Some people like to ajar doors on the outside of the buildings. We shouldn't be doing that, but if we do, OSHA could walk through a side door and just walk into one of your departments. So typically we want your employees, the first point of contact who comes in contact with a OSHA agent, to know exactly what actions they should take. And that's what I'm going to walk you guys through today. So I plan to fill your pockets with tangible stuff. So you have two choices. You guys can take notes along the way, and I want you to write down those things that go, oh, I better check on this. Oh, I better talk to this person. Oh, I want to implement that immediately. So this is active, interactive. It's really not passive. I don't want you guys to waste your time listening to me today and then go try to figure out with your team what you're actually supposed to do with what I said. I want to give you action items to leave here with. Your time is important. And so let's start off with who OSHA is. Just a reminder, OSHA is a federal agency. All of the New England states, we are not state plans. Therefore, every single one of you listening to my voice right now are mandated and required by law to follow the OSHA regulations. That is that 900-page book that I showed you. Some of you, sometimes your plant and facilities guys, they actually dip their toe into a second book that's 900 plus pages, which is the construction regulations. So you just need to really have a handle on how to get started correctly to make sure that you guys don't find yourself lost in translation. So OSHA's been around for 50 years, 51 actually. The way I remember it is actually it was born in my birthday. I was born in 1971, and so wasn't OSHA. And so for the last 51 years, OSHA has been around protecting us, our employees, our companies. Sadly, for many of us, our grandparents and our great-grandparents weren't protected under OSHA. In the workplace. And although they've been around for 51 years, sadly, looking at statistics and numbers, There was a period of time, like 5 years, like around 2016 to 2020-ish, where OSHA's, all of our numbers were going down. And unfortunately, like everything, COVID kind of changed a lot of things in our organizations. And we've seen a significant rise and increase in injuries in the workplace, complaints from employees about the conditions of that which they work in. And now, of course, with this new hiring, we see these targeted inspections, but the numbers are actually starting to go back up, which I think is why they've gone through this hiring and they're putting these new initiatives in place. So we're not on a trend to go down anymore. We're on a trend to go up, and their job is to decrease the risk, right? Prevent injuries and illnesses from happening in the workplace. That's what they enforce. Now, they put all that responsibility on you. They basically say the day you guys opened up your doors and hired one employee, you are now responsible for understanding what the OSHA federal regulations expect of you, and how it all works. Now, one of the things about OSHA is they actually do have a consulting division. So I think it's important for you guys to understand that you can actually call up OSHA. They're separate from the enforcement. You can have them come into your company and they can assess and evaluate what you're doing. I must caution you though, because we obviously work with them. I must caution you, don't invite OSHA in to take a look at a certain department or a certain piece of equipment or a certain training topic or a certain, or have them walk around your building if you are not ready to roll up your sleeves, invest, and do all the things that they find. Okay. So although it's a free service, really helpful at the right moment and right time, we caution you to invite them in if you're not really ready to do the corrective actions and work with them to get things abated along the way. Now, while you are working with the consultation side, I want you to know that the enforcement side can't come walking through your door while you're working with the consulting side. At the point where you finish working with the consulting side, though, then you're, like everyone else, potentially exposed to OSHA coming knocking at your door for whatever reason. If in the event that OSHA Consulting makes those recommendations to help you, because these are free services, and you don't follow through with your abatement process with them, then that also can set you guys up for being in a position that you don't want to be. So OSHA is about rights of the employees, okay? And so we're going to talk about those in a second. And one of the first things I want to know about, you guys can see the poll question that pops up right now, which is, have any of you guys actually walked through this? Okay, I just want to get a sense. The way I present today kind of dictates the words that I choose. I want to make sure that I'm talking to the audience's needs. So if the majority of you are like, no, we've never done this before, right? Or there's a, majority of you are like, oh yeah, we've done this before, but we didn't put this formally in place. So Darcy, we're here to find out about how to formalize this so that we, have a better outcome. Or no, Darcy, I need you to walk me through this so I can build it out the right way. All right, so I see the poll in front of me, and it looks like, for the most part, most of you have never done this before. Only 3 of you have. So for the 3 of you that have, what this webinar will be good for is a checks and balances. Do you have these things in place now? Did you have them in place before? Do you need to modify or edit it so that you're in a better place if they should ever walk through the door, which we hope that isn't the case. For all of you who are brand new, I'm basically going to help you guys map out that roadmap along the way. So thanks for filling that out. Now, this OSHA poster, by the way, is not going to cause OSHA to come knock at your door, but it's free and you're required to have it because this is what tells your employees what their rights are under OSHA. And OSHA's not happy if they come in your building for something else and they see that this isn't up. So I'm taking 15 seconds to tell you, it's a free poster. If you belong to Paychex, ADP, Complete Payroll Solutions, your payroll company typically will give you a copy of this for free. And it's usually laminated with your other stuff. Just make sure that you have it and that it's up. And if you don't have one, just go to the OSHA's website, print it for free, and stick it up where all your employees are. Because I have seen this year, it cost a company $5,432 for not putting up a free poster. Okay. And so you don't actually have to train your people in the poster or have a training roster that says you went over the poster rules. It has to be posted in a visible space so that your employees can see it and have access to it. So that might be what action number 1 for you guys. Okay. Is to make sure that that's in play. All right. Action number 2. I'm going to briefly spell out what's on that policy. I was on that, sorry, what's on that poster so that you understand things that you should have in place. Because I can tell you, these are the things that OSHA is going to be looking at when they come through your door. Now I'm going to explain to you how they show up. Hey, Darcy, how do they even show up? Like I briefly said your NAIC code, but let me tell you, I'm going to tell you about the other ways also. But these are the things that you guys, the low-hanging fruit that you should already have in play that don't end up on a citation process, which is number one, have the poster. Number two, everything related to safety data sheets, SDSs. You guys, the M for material safety data sheet is long gone. So if you are generationally been in manufacturing and you used to work with MSDSs, that's an indicator to the regulators that you guys aren't up to speed. Okay, so everything is SDS. The M is gone. And you guys need to have safety data sheets available, accessible to your employees. It doesn't matter if it's electronic or in a book. They just have to be accessible to them. You need to have a training record on it. And the reason I'm talking about this one so much is this is the number one cited violation by OSHA. And again, the 27 that I've worked on, I think probably half of them had this on their citations. So you want to make sure you have a training record saying that you've done it. You need to have a cover sheet to your safety data sheets, a master inventory list. And the other thing is you need to have a secondary label container process. How do you guys put labels on your spray bottles or your oil containers after your staff has poured it out of the 1 gallon jug or dumped the oil, they pumped it out of the 55 gallons into something else? Those secondary containers, that whole process, it's actually written on the right to know poster. So I want you guys to make sure that you're rock solid in this area. Number three, training. So people make a mistake. They think training has to be PowerPoint in a classroom, and that's completely not true. That's not what the regulation says. The regulation says you have to put it in a language I understand. You can't use big words that I don't understand. And the key here is effective. Darcy, are you telling me that I can do a training in 3 minutes and it can be effective and OSHA will accept it? Heck, they will. If your employees know what you want them to do, how you want them to do it, the tools that you want them to do it in, and they're doing it safely based on your directive, I don't care how long it takes you to make that happen. You just need to make that happen. So the requirement is effective training in a language and terminology that I understand. So we know that a lot of our manufacturings are moving to Mandarin and Portuguese and Spanish. And so a lot of things have just only been done in English. Now I want you guys to know you can go to the OSHA's website. And if you guys are into like toolbox or safety briefings, you should go there because they've already translated everything in multiple languages for you. So one of the good things to do is you can print something off in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Mandarin, hand the Spanish, Portuguese, and Mandarin to all of those employees who speak those languages, their primary. I can read it in English and they can follow along in their language. They can then ask questions. I can support them. And so OSHA loves to see us when we start to incorporate things in multiple languages, because that's the expectation. If you have ever tried to translate, if any of you are bilingual, and if you ever tried to translate a safety sentence into another language, it is probably the hardest task I've ever seen. I have bilingual staff and they're like, I can't use Google Translator. I hand it to my bilingual staff and they laugh. They're like, do you know what you just said? I'm like, no, but that's what Google Translate did. So you got to be very mindful of when you're using like, apps and programs of translating. And the other thing you want to be mindful of is if you've got employees who are doing the translating for you and they're not familiar with safety words, because you don't really know what they're translating and they might be struggling to actually try to translate it and present it in the way that you're asking it for. So this is a big focus initiative now. The other thing is your record, injury and illness reporting records, your OSHA logs. It's the first thing they ask for when they come through the door, you guys. Right now, if I walk in your door, can you hand me the last 5 years of your OSHA logs? I need the summary logs that show me. By the way, your summary logs, they don't have to be posted right now, but your 300 A's from February 1st to April 30th. If you aren't doing this, you're in violation. You need to post your summary logs up for all your employees to see. Okay, so that's also part of the requirement. I just had someone get fined in April because the OSHA walked through and they did not see that summary log posted and they had 0 incidents. Yes. Darcy, are you saying if we have no incidents, we still have to put 0 on the paperwork and post it on the wall? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying that you guys need to do. The other categories on the post have to do with industrial hygiene, air quality testing, noise. Those are 2 big ones. I've seen OSHA sending in 2 agents. I have a company right now, small company, 30 employees. who has 2 agents with 2 inspections going on. One agent's doing occupational health stuff and the other one's doing everything related to air quality. Are the microwaves in the production department? I just had OSHA pull out every microwave out of this company's production department. I see it all the time in manufacturing. You guys love to let your guys keep microwaves in their departments, heat up the food, eat their food, not allowed. So OSHA pulled all the microwaves right out of this company. They did the air quality testing. They did the noise testing. And remember, they get to interview your employees. So what we do, our behaviors, the perception our employees have of us, it's going to get communicated and translated when OSHA does one-on-one interviews with our employees without us. Okay. And then the next part is PPE. So personal protective pieces of equipment. Remember, you guys, we have to buy the PPE. We got to make sure it's the right PPE for the right problem with the right sizes. Also, I have had to do a ton of mitigating of writing job hazard assessments. If you're not familiar with that, I'll give you a little bit later on. A job hazard assessment, you know, when your kids do math now and the teacher says, no, you can't put the number 4 in the answer box. You got to show me how you came up with 4, 3 plus 1, 2 plus 2, 5 minus 1. You can't just give them the answer anymore. OSHA is at the same point now. So my last mitigations, the last 8 months, I can't say, hey, we require steel toe, high visibility, and a half mask, respiratory and welding. And they're like, well, show me how you came up with that decision. Show me your work. That's a job hazard assessment, PPE assessment, PPE being the last line of defense. What are all the things they put? Exhausts, ventilation fans, maybe you change out the raw material. What are all the other things you did before you gave your people PPE? All part of the requirement in the process. And then, of course, when OSHA does show up, employees have a right to get involved. Once OSHA leaves, we have to post up the citation letter that we get from OSHA. We have to tell our employees what we're doing, that we're in the middle of an inspection. If we decide to go to an informal meeting, we need to let our employees know that. We need to post that up. Our employees have the ability to be involved in this whole entire process and the right to be informed about it, which is part of the requirement that OSHA will tell you once you are involved in an investigation. And the last most important part is no retaliation. So you guys, you cannot retaliate against any employee who calls against you, files a complaint, is interviewed, says something, or you find out that they say something that wasn't true or was not nice or kind. We cannot retaliate against our employees because OSHA will come back in, and then that creates a whole new set of citations and litigations and problems that come with that. Okay. So there's specific rules on no retaliation. So this slide right here basically shows you OSHA's got 4 of those really thick books that I just showed you. You guys fall into general industry, and they did a really smart thing, which is this. For those of you who are evolving and growing and coming up with new technologies, which possibly have new hazards that aren't actually in the book yet. I mean, there's not a lot that isn't, but you got to remember there was a point in time when ergonomics didn't exist. There was a point in time where we didn't have all these lasers going around. So OSHA is catching up on writing all these rules, regulations, and standards. You guys might be familiar. Last year, you'd think that they'd written every rule already, but know what? Last year, they wrote a heat stress regulation. So every single one of you, if you're not familiar with the new heat stress requirements, and all of you have to now have a heat stress plan, every pop-up of everything that's coming into my inbox right now is all about the new heat stress regulation and Biden supporting it and change of climate and all the new initiatives going into it. And this is the hot season. Now, I'm not expecting them to walk through the door of a manufacturer, but they're definitely going to tackle the construction industry first. But you got to be just aware. If they show up at your door and it's 100 degrees or 80 plus degrees or 90 degrees with no air conditioning in there, and they're in that building, they're going to ask you. They have the right to ask you. Even if they're not there for heat, they have the right to ask you, where's your heat stress plan? What do you guys do? It's hot in here. How are we mitigating and managing the heat associated with our manufacturing? So if you're not familiar with that one, that's a new one that just started. So you want to dive into it. That's why I show you here the general duty clause. The general duty clause is actually a federal law that says if OSHA hasn't written a formal law on this yet, but they find it to be a hazard and you're not doing anything about it, you can be cited under the general duty clause. Okay, so they basically put a catch-all in place. Getting to the website, one of the things you guys want to think about too is because OSHA can come knocking at your door for people like me. So if you guys hire people like me, cleaning companies, landscape people, HVAC guy getting on your roof, maybe the roof needs to be redone, so you got roof guys there, you've got Haas machine operators coming in to fix your machines. Whenever someone comes into your building who's another company and you got two companies on site, if I bring all my problems, my bad behaviors, my non-compliance to OSHA, it also becomes your problem. So one of the things you guys should be doing with your vendor relationship is going to the OSHA's website and looking me up. Look up Darcy Cook, look up Cook Professional Resources, look up safety trainers, see if I'm associated with any company that's already been in trouble or is currently in an investigation with OSHA. The last thing you want to do is hire the lowest bidder and bring them into your building and bring OSHA with them. Okay, so it's important to take a look there. And also you'll find out what are all the things that they're citing right now. What are all the Massachusetts companies that they're citing? You know, what are they looking at? Go to the manufacturing section, go to Rhode Island, go to Massachusetts, wherever you're from, and check on it and see who, right, is on the hot seat and what they're in trouble for. This NAIC code, I will tell you, it is now dictating more than it has in the past. If you do not know what your NAICS is, your NAIC code, go to your HR department, go to your finance person, find out what it is. Because OSHA comes knocking at your door and says, I'm here for the amputation program, I'm here for the noise program, I'm here for the forklift program. You're going to say, oh, how did you choose us? And they're going to say, oh, you're NAICS. And you're going to say, great, can you show me the list of NAICSs that go with that directive? And you're going to make sure that yours is on that list. Because if it's not, then they don't have a right to be there. So there are some little nuances it's important to understand. Here are the top 6. So I pulled this out just for manufacturing because we're talking to manufacturers today. You guys, these are the top 6. If you get off this webinar and you're like, okay, I came to this webinar so I can get Darcy's checklist, because that's what you guys get at the end, by the way. I want Darcy's checklist, her worksheet, so I can give this to my employees. So if OSHA comes through the door, they can follow this worksheet and know what to do and what information they need to gather so that we can actually, you know, put a plan against the violations and citations. So, but I want you to basically hear, if you want to know what else you should be doing, it's these 6 areas. So hazardous communications, respiratory protection. If you have anyone wearing an N95 mask, you know, the paper ones that look like a dust mask. Okay. N95 are not masks. They're N95 respirators. People call them masks. They're not masks. So N95 mask, half mask, full mask, that's all under the respiratory program, a voluntary D program, maybe. You need to know about lockout tagout. You guys, this is the big one. I have had, of the 27 that I've had, 23 of them were cited for lockout tagout. They have a massive initiative. And guess what? There's one word in the regulation that they are zapping all these companies for. Now, we know the secret because we've been doing it, and we know the secret because I've been debating it for 27 years. And here's the secret. All of you have to have written lockout tagout procedures. For every piece of equipment that has more than one energy source, you must have a written policy. You must have authorized training roster, affected training roster. And here's the other one. This is the one most of the companies that come to us are missing. You must have an inspection form that shows me that you did your own audit of your own lockout tagout program. Plus, you need to make sure you have isolating devices that actually lock and tag out a piece of equipment so that I can't turn a handle or turn a knob. It's not just about putting a lock and a tag on it. Those tags have to have people's names and have to have dates on it, right? So this one is a big one. It adds up really quick at $15,000 a pop, $15,000 for not having training, $15,000 for not having procedures, $15,000 for not having a policy written, it adds up really quick. Power industrial trucks. Most manufacturers know this. Everyone has to drive a fork truck. If they're driving a fork truck, they have to have a 3-year certification in their back pocket, so to speak, what we call as a wallet card. They have to do that training every 3 years. But what most companies don't realize is, actually, I'm going to get myself out of a job right now. You don't have to hire me. You actually don't have to hire a third-party outside person to do forklift training for your company. But you should look at, if you want to bring it in-house, is you can actually train your in-house staff to run and manage this. It's called the Train the Trainer program, but you can bring it in-house and then you don't have to keep hiring people like us. Whatever it is, though, you need to have a proof that I was trained to operate that piece of equipment. So I just had a company get fined, and they had they weren't clients of ours. They came into us and we said, hey, well, what's your training record? And it just said forklift driving. And specifically, they had no proof that, let's call Darcy, was trained on that Toyota piece of equipment. They want to see that on the back of the wallet cards, all the pieces of equipment that I'm actually authorized, practiced, trained, and driver tested on that I can actually use. Maybe it's only one piece of equipment. Maybe I can do all 6 or 7. Maybe if you have different pieces of equipment, I have to be trained and you have to show that I've been trained on different pieces of equipment. Lockout, tagout. Machine guarding. You guys, machine guarding. Get the guards on, get the guards on. If it's in the way, I'm sorry, get the guards on. If your employees don't like it, I'm sorry, get the guards on. I just had, you guys know what a bench grinder is? 3 bench grinders standing next to each other. Instead of OSHA citing the company for 3 bench grinders that were non-compliant, they cited them each bench grinder. $45,000, $15,000, and a little bit more than that for each of the bench grinders. One didn't have a guard. One's guard, the gap was too big. It wasn't controlled, so no one was trained to adjust the guards. And one was broken, but it was not locked. It was not tagged out. Single source. It wasn't tagged out, and it was still plugged into the wall, which gave them an indication that someone could have used it, even though it was broken. So they get cited for 3. Okay, so machine guarding, and then of course electrical wiring, electrical panels, all the stuff associated with using extension cords when you're not supposed to, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these are the big 6 that you guys should be focusing on. So let's get in right now. Here we are, OSHA's inspection. What do you guys need to know? Little poll question here, you guys. Regional emphasis program applies to your business. Let me get to that. Hold that poll for 1 second. Because we're not quite on that slide yet, but OSHA's inspection, this is what I want you guys to be able to do. Okay, let me get you down here. Right here. So imminent danger, the reason they're coming the door is someone calls and says, hey, someone's going to die in this company, makes a referral recommendation, complains about the air, complains about no guarding, complains about the fact that you put them on a piece of equipment, never trained them, complain that they're being exposed to chemicals. Imminent danger, they're coming. Fatality or hospitalization, that's actually number 2 on the list, because OSHA, sadly, someone already got hurt, injured, or died. They can't prevent that. So they show up on day 2. They don't show up on day 1. Okay, so they go to referrals right off the bat. Then worker complaints. Imminent danger also has to do with visually being able to see it. So if they drive by your property, typically as you see this in construction, they'll stop. And then targeted inspections. So targeted inspections are local and national inspections. I'm going to show you what the list is right now. And the last way that they show up is follow-up. So if you've always gotten in trouble, they're going to come back and see you. The thing that we're seeing right now is referrals, employees calling, people getting hurt going to the hospital and the hospital calling, or targeted industries. So let me show you right here, targeted industry. This is the regional emphasis program for New England. So any of your buildings noisy? Any of you guys have fork trucks? Are you a seafood processing industry? You're not crane and construction, so I can take that one out. Falls, you're not tree and landscaping and not residential construction. So for locally, noise and forklifts, unless you're a seafood processing plant, those are the 2 things that are going to get them to come through the door. So if you have fork trucks in your building, that means your NAIC code got thrown into the forklift bucket. If you have a noise hearing conservation program, if your NAIC code is an indicator that your building probably is noisy, it got thrown into the noisy bucket. Okay. And so they could come and knocking at your door for that one. The other one is this one, national emphasis program. So go ahead and put the poll up for the national emphasis program. Let's see. We got some of you indicating that you would fall into that category, right? So now let's go to the national emphasis program. Look at this list. Combustible dust. Any of you guys have combustible dust? Any kind of, you have a wood shop of any sort? And you guys making your own pallets, boxes, shipping material? Paper. I have a paper company, creates a lot of combustible dust. Falls, hazardous machinery. That's called the amputation program. Do any of you guys have pieces of equipment people can chop off their fingers? If the answer is yes, that's you. And that's the big one under lockout tagout that they've been coming through the door for. Heat. Does your production area air conditioned and temperature controlled? If it's not, heat is going to become potentially a problem for you. If you guys do welding, soldering, grinding, brazing, anything with oh my God, why can't I think of the word steel? What's the steel I want that creates hexa? Oh my gosh. brain fire. I know you guys know it. Then there's lead exposures, the metals industries that literally all their NAIC codes are in a bucket and they just pull them out of the hat. Crystalline silica. So think about granite, marble, landscaping, pavement companies, trench and excavation, obviously it's going to be construction. And then right here, warehouse and distribution centers. So warehouse and distribution centers, anything in metal, anything with welding, grinding, brazing of, oh my gosh, why can I not think of the steel? Sorry, you guys. Any kind of machine that can chop off your finger, falls, and combustible dust. That's a national emphasis program. That means any of our regulators in New England can come to your building under these programs in addition to the noise and the forklift ones on top of it. Okay. So I'm sure every single one of you falls into one of these categories, right? Okay. So let me go back up here for a second. Here we go. So NAIC codes, you guys, you can actually, in the Power Deck, I gave you the link. So if you're not familiar with yours, I had a lot of companies who got in trouble. And then I said to them, hey, what's your NAC? And they didn't even know. So then we had to go look them up. We had to figure out what category they fell into, all the kind of stuff. So if you aren't familiar and you want to get a handle on that, be better prepared is, take the slide deck, go here and figure out what your NAICS is. Okay. So I want you guys to rate yourself. And so this will be a poll. So as far as this goes, okay, in terms of preparing for an OSHA visit, I need to know where you are based on the information I'm about to give you. So number one is we didn't put anything in place. That's why I'm here. Number three is we got something, but I just want to make sure we're on the right track, Darcy. That's why we came to hear what you had to say in the first place. Or we're extremely confident and we're rock solid. Okay, so most of you are here because you're in the middle, right? Okay, fair enough. Let me get over here. So here's what happens. Number one, OSHA walks through the door. The first thing they need to do is show you their credentials. And then you need to call the regional director and make sure they're really supposed to be there and they really are who they are. What do you mean, Darcy? People will try to impersonate being an OSHA investigator? Yep, they do. I've also had young OSHA agents, brand new in the industry, decide to, kind of do a rookie move, as I want to call it, and show up in some place that they weren't supposed to. And so you need to check their credentials and validate that they're supposed to be there. They have to tell you specifically why they're there. Someone called, someone complained, someone got hurt, you got pulled out of a hat. They're going to need to tell you. Your format is there'll be an opening conference. There'll be a closing conference. They are going to review all of your documents that they want. I'm going to tell you what those look like. They're going to do a facility inspection. They're going to do interviews. They're going to gather of your employees. They're going to gather any additional information. They might want manuals of equipment. I've seen that lots of times. And then at the end of it, they're going to leave, go back to their office, and they're going to come to you later on and either send you your citation letter or ask for more information. When you get your citation letter, you guys have 15 days to respond. In those 15-day window, you have to decide, do you want to go to an informal conference, pay the fine, or fight it? When OSHA leaves your building and then you get the letter, there's a period of time. During that time, you should be fixing everything because you already know what all the problems are. During that period of time, if you get things fixed, when the letter shows up, you should always choose informal meeting. Why? Because that's a time for us to negotiate and discuss, blend fines, eliminate fines. It's an opportunity for us to get rid of citations and cut them down in half. So you want to make sure you are prepared to go to an informal meeting. You shouldn't go to an informal meeting if you've done nothing since OSHA left your building. I get many phone calls a few days before they get the letter and they sit on the letter and then they decide to call me. And I've got literally 5 days to solve all their problems, get in an informal meeting and negotiate it down with zero time. You guys should be starting the day after OSHA leaves. Okay. So credentials are important. So that's first part. The next thing is, should we let them on the property? I will tell you this, don't tell them to go away. Don't tell them to come back with a warrant. Don't tell them to, speak to the attorneys. It's a bad way to start. Okay. If you know what to do, you can control this and you can manage it. The right people will be in the room and you'll be as good as you can be based on, how your company operates and where you are in terms of perspective. In the opening conference, they'll wait a little bit for everyone to show up, but they won't wait long. You better have everyone in that room in less than 45 minutes. Okay. By the way, you should put them in a conference room that's not in the back of the room. You should not be walking them through the building. You should keep them in the lobby. You should go from a lobby to a conference room without letting them see access to where you are. You get to control what they see and where they go. As a matter of fact, when it's time to go look at your facility, don't walk them through the middle of the facility unless everyone's on break. Why? Because you can actually walk them out of the building, walk them around the building, and walk in a door closest to where the situation, circumstance, or items are that they want to look at. Okay. Now it's harder to do that with a targeted industry, but if someone's been injured or there's a specific complaint referral, it's very easy to bring them just to what they want to see and back. If it's an NAIC target industry, it opens more doors because they have opportunity to look at more things. And typically they are walking through the center of your building. So it gets a little, dicier at that point in time. First thing they're going to ask you for, though, before they go do the inspection, you got to have your OSHA logs, you guys. They're going to ask up to 5 years of OSHA logs, the first piece of paper they ask for every single time. Okay. So how many of you guys right now, if I said to you, go get me your last 2 years, your last 3 years of OSHA logs, could you grab them and get them to me? How many of you? That's question number one. Question number two, if I said to you, which is next, show me the training records for forklift. Show me your training records for hearing conservation. Show me your training records for hazardous communications. Do you have a 5-year history? You guys, that's the minimum requirement. OSHA can go back 5 years and ask for training records, okay? And then the last one is, are you familiar with the job hazard assessment? How do you assess the hazards of your building? How do you make decisions logically and in a process that OSHA will accept? Remember, show your work in order to come up with decisions on how to abate things. I will say this, you guys, there's a lot of ways to get across the finish line. Okay. Our job is to help you get across the finish line. But we don't all cross the finish line the same way. We're not all going to travel the same path. The resources, the supplies, the infrastructure, where you're geographically located, you're not all the same, so we can't treat you all the same. We all have to get to the same place, but we can't get there the same way. Okay? So you guys need to have your results. Of your OSHA logs, you need to have those posted. You need to have all your training records. If this is there because someone got hurt, you need to have your incident report. You need to have your corrective actions for that incident report. And you need to make sure that you guys have reviewed it and you come up with a better solution to decrease the risk of it happening in the future. Okay. Then we go over here. Next part is they're going to do a facility inspection, limit what they see, control what they see. Have the person walk on the right and person walk on the left. Make sure they don't wander off the path. Make sure they follow the direction and path of what you want them. Before you go do the facility, be crystal clear with you. So we're walking to the shipping department so you can see the forklift, right? Yes, OSHA agent, that's where I'm going. Great. Then you follow me. That's where I'm taking you. We're not taking side trips. We're not going to stop up at the welder. We're not going to stop off at the flammable materials cabinet. We're not stopping. We're going there. That's where we're going. Make sure OSHA and you agree to what the next steps are, because they need to follow a process and you have control over it. Okay. But if they take a photo, what do you think I want you to do? Take a photo. They take a video. What do you think I want you to do? Take a video, right? And if they say to you, hey, that fire extinguisher, it's supposed to be hooked up on the wall. Hey, Mr. Agent, can I go over and put that on the wall? Yes, you can. Go put it on the wall. Hey, those pallets are blocking that path to exit. Can I move that for you? Yes, go over there. Move the pallet while they're there. Hey, I didn't see your logs posted. I'm going to go print it right now. I'm going to go post it right now. While they're there, if they're giving you a gimme, you better have a team of people ready to go and you get that stuff done right there while they're there. Okay? Because they will take that in consideration when it comes to citations. Okay? Also in the facility inspection, basically they're going to get to the point where they're going to say, okay, I want to start talking to people. Then they're going to tell you, I want to talk to the welder. I want to talk to the forklift operator. I want to talk to the head of the department. I want to talk to whoever. And you have to find a room and a space and a place for them to go. And you don't get to be part of it. And they get to talk freely with your employees and your employees get to talk freely with them. And we don't get to interrogate our employees when they come out and find out what's going on. Okay. Again, because that could be seen as harassment and we could get cited and fined in trouble for that. If an employee that they've selected is bilingual and they might need support with translation. It can't be you. It can be another person of peers of equal, but it can't be a manager or supervisor who's doing the translating in the room. Now, a lot of our OSHA agents now are bilingual, so they will say to you, hey, is it okay if I speak in Spanish instead of English? You won't be in the room anyways. The employee typically says, yes, go ahead and speak in Spanish, and they switch from speaking English to Spanish, and they can communicate back and forth without an interpreter present. So I've seen that a few times over the last couple of months as well. So they go through the interview process, and then they come back into a room with all of you, the key people. They tell you what they took pictures of. They tell you what they took videos of. They tell you some of the information that they've gathered from some of the employees, which is leading them to a opinion, leading them to a decision, right? Because they're going to take that into consideration, not only what they see, but also what they hear in combination. So this is where they start to tell you all the things you're about to get in trouble for. This is the time where you fix something, discuss something. This is when you advocate for yourself. This is where you write all of it down, so we know exactly what the letter is going to say in a few months. Not exactly, but pretty close to it, okay? So we want to make sure that we get the information as best as we can out of them at that moment in time, so that when they leave the building, we know exactly what we need to do for the next few weeks until that letter shows up. You want things fixed and corrected before the letter shows up. That is your negotiating power. Your negotiating power is that you fix these things. So now you go to informal meeting and say, hey, the minute you left, we got right on this. We bought this. We added this. We trained in this. We fixed this, repaired this. Look at, we have pictures. We have videos. We are better than where we were when you came to see us. Can we please discuss reorganizing our citations and our fines and what this looks like? Now, unfortunately, you guys, it doesn't go away 100%. It's public record. It will be posted on OSHA's website. If you have clients and vendors who go to the site and look or ask, hey, have you ever been cited or fined? And they make you fill out a safety panel or document prior to doing work with them. All of those things, it is public record, and it is available, and it is accessible to them. The dollars and cents are not discussed. So the dollars and cents are not discussed at that moment in time. They must go back to their area director, who makes sure that that employee, that agent didn't make any mistakes, that they actually are citing you for broken laws, not opinion. And so when the area director sees that you've broken a law, then the area director determines if they're going to blend, combine, and what your fining structure is going to look like, not the actual agent who did your investigation. As a matter of fact, after the investigation is done, you don't actually talk to that person anymore. That goes to the area director or the director of your area, and they're the one that's going to be communicating with you moving forward in the process. So one of the things you guys want to see is these numbers are real. So they went up in January. They went up from the $12,000 range into the $15,000 range, and went to the $120,000 for willful, up to $156,000. Willful means your employees are telling OSHA that they have been telling you that this is a problem. You've been ignoring it, and now they're going to start you at a $156,000 fine, not a $15,000 fine, because you are willfully ignoring and not doing your part of what the expectation is. If you guys follow Dollar Tree or Dollar Store, they're up to $21 million in fines right now for willful violations of all the stuff that they're doing as a part of their programs. So here's what we need to do. OSHA comes to the door, fix everything, request an informal meeting, and then at the informal meeting, they're going to give you guys a choice. Do you want to go into a payment plan with the new number that we're presenting to you based on your negotiations with them today, based on all the good things that you show? We're going to give you goodwill. Or do you want to fight this and go to legal action? Okay, so it depends. So OSHA comes through, you go through all those steps. At the end of the closing meeting, you know exactly what the problems are. They leave and go away. You guys get to work fixing them. When the letter shows up, you know how much they're charging you and what you're in trouble for. You ask for an informal meeting because you've made all these changes already. You show them that you made these changes. They renegotiate your citations, and then they're going to say to you, do you accept it with a payment plan, or would you like to go to litigation? Okay, we talked about them all over. So now what? Now what are you guys going to do with this information? So you guys need to create a document, which I'm pretty sure if you guys work with Polaris that you guys get, because I have one. I've already put it up there. You're going to get a document. Everything that I've taught you right now that I've said to you and told you, we have in an SOP, a standard operating procedure. It's written down. It's this organized. All you have to do is put the contact names and telephone numbers of the people that you want to be contacted when OSHA comes knocking at your door. You need to put on it what lobby, what conference room you want to actually put them in. You need to talk about pictures and videos, like some details, but we've literally drafted out what I've shared with you today in a written procedure, and you guys just fill in the blanks related to you. The other thing too is we created a worksheet. So the worksheet is going to allow you that while OSHA's there, you're writing everything down in this worksheet so you don't forget anything. You can reference it later. And if you did hire a third party, you can give that worksheet to the third party because they weren't there. And then you'll be able to work with them much better and more efficiency. You need to train your staff in this documentation. You need to train the staff in this process so they don't make the critical mistakes. I had 2 employees who made a critical mistake that welcomed OSHA in and walked them through the building. It resulted in 17 citations and violations because they didn't know what to do and they let OSHA walk around and just start making a list. That's a no-no, okay? We don't do that. So we got to train our staff to make sure that that's not the case. And you guys need to go review your safety health management system, right? Do you guys have OSHA logs? Where are your training records? Do you guys have a written policy for everything that I told you that they're going to come knock on your door for today, which was only a little snippet? I didn't show you the whole book. So do you have a policy for that stuff? Do you have a job hazard assessment in place that shows me how you decided to give me that PPE, right? That's showing me the work. And in terms of your employees, think about your culture. What would they say about you, right now? So these are the 7 areas of a safety health management system that you guys need to have. This is not a safety health management training tool, but these are the 7 areas. 4 of these get you in trouble. 3 of them do not. You have to have all 7 in your program. This is OSHA's. Okay. And so basically you guys need to look at your management leadership, which is documentation. You need to look at identifying hazing, correcting hazards, and of course, training and education. Okay. So this is the elements. If you want to learn more about how to start in building your own safety health management program, OSHA makes it public. They have a whole entire program on their website that you guys can access right on there. You just Google it right on OSHA's.gov and they'll give you access to it. This is a strategy, a process. All your managers, all your supervisors should be trained in the hierarchy of controls. This is basically how do you problem solve. Problem solving. This is right here. You use this format, you problem solve, and this tells you exactly what to do and how to do it. And this problem solving method is what keeps people from getting citations with OSHA. When you can show them that you've done this in a job hazard assessment and show that you've done this when you put your PPE assessment together. I'm going to leave you with this. Prevention costs less, period. Always costs less. Direct costs of the tangible, workers' comp, injury costs, fixing something. Those are the things that companies typically can see. Most companies don't have safety as a line item for a budget, and there's lots of indirect costs. OSHA and your insurance agencies all got together and said, whatever you guys see as your direct cost for injuries and illnesses in the workplace, you need to times that by 2.7. That's the real cost of that injury or incident to the company. The 2.7 number is what the OSHA and the insurance industries came up with. And that's why basically prevention, doing things like this, being prepared, having these things in place, it'll cost you a lot less in the way. All right. I got excited. I definitely went 8 minutes longer than I was supposed to. So you guys, we put a poll up here that basically kind of gives us an idea of, was there a value add? Did you put something in your pocket to be able to take away with you, which is always what we want? Did something we say go, oh, I got to check on that. Oh, I want to take action with that. Oh, I need to, create or build this. The key thing is we want you to have something, right, to know what to do. So the know what to do is create a training record that everyone knows what to do and how to manage it. Know the 7 steps about what's happening with OSHA walking through the door. Set rules and limitations around there. Make sure you gather all the information and you know exactly what you're getting cited and fined before they leave, right? In terms of those elements. And then make sure that you have your OSHA logs handy, you have training records handy and available, and that you have identified the person or persons who are going to manage and conduct the OSHA inspection with OSHA. Okay. All right, Rob, I'm going to send it back to you.
No questions from the audience? Darcy, I have a question.
Yes.
How can we stay updated on changes to OSHA regulations and requirements?
One of the best things people could do is, you know how you can go into Google and put keywords? So
Mhm.
anytime anything hits the internet, if it has the word OSHA in it, OSHA regulation, OSHA citation, OSHA fine, or if you are concerned about specifically heat, lockout, tagout, forklift, whatever, you guys should put those words in as Google search words. Every single week, I get a list of all the things that have been posted underneath those keywords. It's one of the ways that we keep up with it. And OSHA.gov. If you go to their resources page and you sign up, they give you a list of things that you can check that are important to you. And they will weekly or monthly, when they release them, they will send you directly to you what it is that your information that you're interested in from OSHA.
Perfect. Hey, I have another question from the chat. Do you know what regulation it is that you can't have microwaves in the on the manufacturing floor?
It falls under the industrial hygiene standard. I don't know off the top of my head. I have to look at it, but I can look up the company that just got cited for it and tell you what they're citing it under. It's air quality, because they're actually a welding company specifically. So the
Right.
air
So
quality conditions.
particles in the air falling and getting into the food and then consuming that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I have to just look where it is.
Okay, that's easy enough. I think that's it. Does anyone else have any questions?
We have got, let's see. We have an open space that there's a separate area we use as the cafeteria, but it's not private. Would that be a violation?
No, private for what? The interview process? No, because you'd have to limit the people that no one would be able to go in it during the interviewing process, but you could use that space during that time. If you're talking about it being an open space that you want to actually bring them to, my question is it in the middle of your whole place? Are they walking through? Can you control how you get them there? And of course, when they need to go see something, can you control taking them from that point to another point? So the spaces that you use during an OSHA citation, doesn't matter to OSHA. You should just manage them and make sure what they're seeing and how they're getting to and from it.
Thank you. I think there's one more, and then I am conscious of our time. So what do you know about extension cord violations?
Yeah, so extension cords. So under the extension cord, you guys, number one, extension cords cannot be used as permanent wiring. Permanent wiring is defined as 90 days. Now, I can't legally, well, I can legally. I can tell you my workaround. We're being recorded, but so here's my workaround. So if you follow the rules, right, at 90 days, you have permanent wiring with all those fans on these hot days plugged in all over the place, right? But let's say on day 89, you unplugged it and you have a tab on it that says a new date of when you actually put it on, and we have inspections and stuff. Also, you can't lose missing a grounding pin. No grounding pins missing whatsoever are not allowed. You cannot daisy chain extension cords. If it's not long enough and you're going to use it temporarily, then just get a longer extension cord. Go get 100, go get 150. You can't daisy chain them together. Can't put extension cords into power strips. Can't put power strips into power strips. Can't put a T-bar on top of a power strip. If you don't have enough buttons, go get a bigger power strip, right? Power strips are kind of frowned upon in the production area, but not a violation. So typically power strips we see on the front end, we don't see on the back end. The biggest thing is GFCI. So again, if you're using hand and power tools, are you using commercial grade fans? Are you doing commercial space heaters? Like these are all the questions we typically see in the front and back end. So when you're using that extension cord, what is it actually plugging into? Hand and power tools, double insulated, right? Got to have the square inside of the square. Fully thing. You might have to have a GFCI adapter attached to that extension cord. That's not if the hand and power tools aren't protecting the employee. So extension cords, if they're stapled, which they shouldn't be, to the wall, or they're threaded through a wall, through a ceiling, those are also violations, right? Because clearly it's a permanent, if you guys are sticking, taping, and gluing it, right? If you've got it nicely wrapped up, and you take it off and you use it and then you wrap it up and put it away, it's going to be a harder argument for OSHA to say that you're using it all the time. It's permanent.
Hey, Darcy. Well, first off, I want to thank everyone for coming to the webinar. This was incredibly informational, and I don't think that we completely got an answer on the microwave thing. So I just wanted to jump in here real quick. So the question was, and feel free to actually unmute and actually ask the question directly to Darcy and everyone else. We can stay on for a few more minutes for a few more questions, but happy to have you drop off. And again, thank you for coming. Feel free to reach out to Rob or myself, and we'd be happy to set up a meeting with your company and Darcy to figure out how we can help and support your business going forward with these endeavors, because it's continuous improvement, guys.
I'm just going to answer this one really quick before we get to the microwave one from Liz, where all of this information, I'm going to send an email to everyone that attended. And in that, there's going to be a survey, and you can go ahead and fill that survey out. And following that, you're going to receive the slides and you're going to receive the OSHA checklist that Darcy was talking about. You can also email Rob, which is his email address in the chat right there.
Yep, I also threw Kayla's in there as well for any questions, or if you guys just want to have us come by your facility and check it out. Again, thank you, Darcy. And I'm just going to reiterate what Tiffany said. Look for the email. It's asking for feedback. It should be super simple. And once you do that and you complete the survey, we'll end up sending you the PDF of the presentation and that documentation that Darcy was talking about earlier in the webinar. But if there's nothing else, you're more than welcome to jump off.
Hey, Darcy, it's Fatima. I don't know if you remember me from.
Hi.
I see you still got it. You're one of the best. I've never seen anything like it.
Hello there, my friend. Thank you.
I'm the one with the microwave question. I work. We have 4 different floors. Each floor has their own, separate space, the cafeteria. But on the 4th floor, it's an open space, and they use they have a small area where everyone goes and eats. But in that area, it's not. They don't. It's open. There's microwaves.
What's the activity happening in the space?
The only activity in the cafeteria where they eat when they're on the lunch break, but that's it. No one else goes there when they're working.
So on that 4th floor, though, where those microwaves are, with that open space, what work tasks happen up there? Are we welding? Are we building pallets with wood saws? Is it just office space? Like, what is it?
It's not. It's a manufacturer. So we're in the medical industry, and they're doing masking, which has there's one area that they do printing that the doors are closed, which has the odor is really strong. And then the same, but that door is closed. It's not near the cafeteria. And then so where the cafeteria is, there's other people working that they have. It's not. There's no odor there, but there are fans, but there's no odor.
So if it's separated like that, you're probably in good hands. The way it was cited, and I'd have to go back and look because it's still an open investigation, is that this company is a welding company. So they literally are fabricating, grinding, welding, soldering, fumes, vapors. Next to the resistant welders is their microwave. They're literally heating up food and eating it while another guy's welding, right? So it's not that it's the microwave that poses the hazard. It's the microwave in that space with the work being done, that while they're eating, they're being exposed to eating, breathing, swallowing, consuming, right? Potentially. And that's what they're air quality testing right now, is determine the exposure of the employees.
Okay. Thank you, Darcy.
You're welcome. The microwave itself isn't the problem. It's where it is and what's happening around it.
Thank you again. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.